Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Live streaming now in 112 countries. We just learned that we added 6 within the last couple of weeks. This is the Tech Ed Podcast. We're on 43 different podcast platforms, now well over 100 episodes. That's right, here at the Tech Ed Podcast. We are all about data. We are all about technical education, and we are all about advanced manufacturing. Today, we get to bring all 3 of those together with what promises to be a fascinating episode with an even more fascinating guest. Joining me today in the Tech Ed Podcast studio is Paul Van Metre. Paul is the founder of ProShop ERP. Paul, awesome to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Matt. It's great to be here with you.
We love hearing about people's career pathways. Regular listeners to our podcast know that we love diving into where did you start? How did you end up doing what you're doing? We would love to learn more about yours, Paul.
Yeah, so it's actually, I think, kind of perfect because my pathway into the career started with tech education. So I went to a college program that was a very hands-on, sort of semi-engineering, semi-manufacturing program. And it was very, very intense. We basically designed and built cars every year. So it was a super fun program. We were deep into these student projects every single year, designing and building and competing with vehicles, and fell in love with manufacturing and machining, and straight out of college decided to start a machine shop and grew that company from 0 to about 75 employees over the course of about 17 years. And at the same time, we designed some software to run our company with when we couldn't find anything out in the market that we thought was suitable. And so when we sold the manufacturing company, we spun off a software company. And so that's what I'm doing today. Been doing that for about 6-7 years now. And so we have manufacturing ERP QMS product that we sell to precision manufacturers.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but I have to explore this pathway a little bit more deeply. So the program that inspired you toward a career in advanced manufacturing, was this a high school program?
It was actually not. So in high school, I did do some drafting classes. There wasn't a lot of shop classes where I went, but definitely my favorite classes were sort of the engineering and drafting and things like that. But then, no, the program was a college program. And the specific program that we kind of got really heavily involved with was Formula SAE. So Society of Automotive Engineers hosts several different competitions every year. And we were one of 100 or so universities that were competing with our little race cars every year.
I love that.
So much fun.
And what was your field of study while you were going through that path?
It was actually called industrial technology, but it was a vehicle design concentration. And the program itself was called the Vehicle Research Institute. And it was at Western Washington University here in Bellingham, where I still live. And unfortunately, that program is now gone, but it ran for several decades and graduated hundreds of amazing people that have gone on to do great things in the manufacturing industry.
And yet another example of how one's education pathway and their interests and experiences as they're going through that journey can have huge influences, perhaps not surprising, but it is kind of impressive how often that topic comes back to what are my interests, what are my experiences while I'm being educated, and that sparks this opportunity. In your case, owning a machining company for, it sounds like 17 years, and then coming up with a solution on the ERP, MES, QMS side that wasn't available, and that's where innovation comes from, right? If we need something and we can't find it, we find a way to create it. That's what true innovators do. Tell us a little bit more about that product.
Yeah. So as I said, when we ran our shop, when we started getting large enough that we needed some better software to run the company with, we went out and did our research on traditional, manufacturing ERPs. And we just were really disappointed with what we found. Most of the products on the market were very accounting heavy, really not that much focused on manufacturing processes, shop floor controls, quality management. And so we decided to hire a software developer and build something. But originally, it was just for our own company. We had no intentions of selling it to anyone else. But over several years, other companies started seeing it and asking us about it. And our largest machine shop customer also became our first software customer.
So let's explore that a little bit more. I'm very familiar with manufacturing, spent my entire career there up until a few years ago. And as a result, familiar with ERP, MRP systems. And you suggest that maybe what was available on the market was a little more accounting centric. What were you not getting from the typical ERP software that you needed to add into the solution?
Sure. So, I mean, as an example, when we started our company, we'd never worked anywhere. So all we knew was our own company. And so we almost immediately started developing, Excel spreadsheets to help organize stuff. And we would have a specific Excel workbook for every work order we ran through the shop. And we'd have tabs that had, specific sheets with setup instructions, our inspection plan, our cutting tool management, our work instructions, the manufacturing process flow. And that was really nuanced detail, work holding. I mean, all sorts of things that were super specific to machining. And none of the ERPs had any functionality around those areas, right? You could quote a job, you could issue a sales order, you could issue a paper job traveler for the shop floor, and then make packing slips later to ship the product and invoice for it. But the middle stuff, this meat and potatoes of what a manufacturing company does, they just totally left it out.
Fascinating. Some of the best companies I've been involved with have tried to run the world on spreadsheets, and I've been guilty of that a few times myself. I mean, give me one of my favorite interview questions, by the way. When you ask them, what software are you familiar with? They always say Excel, and I say, what's your favorite formula? And you'll know right away whether they're, really proficient with Excel or they just want you to believe they are based upon their answer to that question. But eventually our businesses outgrow our ability to track them using spreadsheets, and we've got to have more formal ways of doing it. And it sounds like that was the catalyst for the software that you were using initially as a captive tool for your team, and has now become commercialized across a number of different clients. Anything else our listeners should know about the specific software solution that you're offering?
As our company grew, we decided to get ISO certified. So we built a whole bunch of modules and functionality to manage the ISO certification process. We then decided to go for AS9100 for the aerospace industry, and we built a bunch more functionality. So, besides the shop floor centric features that I kind of mentioned previously, we also embed a deeply integrated, totally intermeshed QMS system into the product. So, in our opinion, QMS is really just BMS, it's business management systems. And so therefore it has to be completely intertwined with the ERP functionality, because in a company that cares about quality and cares about execution, you cannot disentwine quality from standard business processes. They are all one.
And every ISO or AS auditor that's going to be music to their ears, because they preach that all the time. Your quality management system should be your business management system.
Two thumbs up to
absolutely. That. And we talk all about the incredible importance of aligning continuous improvement projects in manufacturing to our overall business objectives. And over time, that has become absolutely part and parcel just about every quality management system. And so it sounds like everything from material to finished product to quality registration to audit to lot control to, every one of these aspects of the importance in the related quality aspects of running a manufacturing company, that you integrated all of that. So very, very impressive. And I'm sure that the listeners will put in the show notes more information about the software and how they can get a hold of it, because certainly as somebody who worked in manufacturing all those years, I can see where there's tremendous value. There's also tremendous value in educating the next generation about these types of technologies and the very concepts that you and I are talking about today, Paul. Now, when we're talking about technical education, we're really focused a lot of times on electromechanical technology, AC/DC circuits, electric relay control, fluid power, control systems, CNC control. All of these things that are really, really a big part of educating the next generation of workforce talent around advanced manufacturing. Speak to the importance of adding that data piece. You think about all the data you're gathering in a manufacturing process. Should we be teaching that as well?
We absolutely should, because data, especially in 2023, right? Data is so critical to good decision making, to analyzing the results of what you're doing with all those projects, all those things you're learning about, and having a strong foundation in that coming into the workforce is absolutely something that employers are wanting. They're wanting those new hires to have good foundational principles about data management, and so we think it's fundamental.
And you came of age in a manufacturing era, not too far behind where I was, maybe a few years, but not too many. And I still think back to, when we wanted to, for instance, engage in a continuous improvement project, it always became really obvious really early that we didn't have enough data on which to make decisions. So we'd find somebody called an industrial engineer,
Mhm.
we'd hand them a clipboard, they would and a stopwatch, right? And they
Yep,
would stand at a production line and they would gather data for a day, a week, a month, whatever it took,
sure.
until we had enough data to start understanding perhaps what our issues were and what the causes of those issues were so we could get after them with continuous improvement projects. So I certainly understand data management and the importance of data acquisition and analysis in manufacturing. When we think about a high school tech ed program, though, how do we teach data management as it relates to advanced manufacturing and in general to a high school student?
Well, I think part of it comes down to having a program, a platform, a software that actually does that work. Obviously, you could do it with Excel spreadsheets, as many manufacturing companies do, but I think getting sort of data management education and actual specific software skills into the core curriculum at the very earliest stages is just really crucial. One of the things we're most proud of is we do donate our software to educational, tech ed institutions, and some of them have really just taken it and run. A couple of our best examples is a high school program in Brown County High School, Indiana, called Eagle Manufacturing. It's a student-run machine shop business that the students do everything from soup to nuts, from quoting to shipping and everything in between, and they're using ProShop, super core to everything they do for estimating their jobs, processing orders, ordering inventory, processing the work, doing packing slips, invoicing, and all that. And it's they can do their jobs much more effectively and serve their customers better using an integrated program rather than a bunch of Google Sheets, which is what they were doing previously. And so, and then we have another, college tech program that is using ProShop as the foundation for all the student projects. So it's not a student business, but they sort of build the curriculum and the student projects right into our software. So if a student needs to machine a project, they get issued a work order for that project, and within that work order is the bill of materials for what materials they need, what cutting tools they'll need, what inspection equipment they'll need. They can log their results, they can take pictures of their project and embed them there as well, and the professors, teachers can then go through and grade right in the system, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it sounds really, really neat and really cool. So you mentioned Eagle Manufacturing in Brown County, Indiana. The other thing that's beautiful is the fact that at that school, students are learning about the value of data in manufacturing right in their student-run business. It sounds like from hearing you kind of light up a little bit about that experience those students are having, that you're an advocate for student-run businesses. Tell us a little bit. First, maybe just give our audience, those that might not be completely familiar with the model, what is the student-run business, and then why are you such a big advocate for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll first also give a shout out to the whole Uplands region in Indiana there. There's, I think, 11 counties. And a couple of months ago, I went out and gave a keynote talk at the brand new facility for Eagle Manufacturing. They had a wonderful, huge donation from a local philanthropist, and new facility, new machines. But from that region, there was, I think, more than a dozen student-run businesses from other high schools in the surrounding counties. So that whole region is just doing incredible work with these student-run businesses. And the reason I think it's so critical is that conceptual book learning is okay. You got to do some of that. But for a lot of students, especially students that are inclined to be attracted to manufacturing, that can be pretty dry and really kind of a turnoff. I know I didn't love sitting in lectures and just learning stuff. I wanted to be hands-on.
Didn't love is
Right?
a polite way to put it for me. I hated
Yeah,
sitting in lectures, but
hated,
go on.
hated. Yes, yes, thank you. In fact, I started my college career at Boston University
Mhm.
in very large lecture halls doing mechanical engineering, and I just was bored to death.
Yeah.
And when I read about this vehicle program out in Washington, I picked up and moved across the country almost the next day.
So you didn't grow up in Washington.
No,
Did you grow up on the
I
East
did.
Coast then, or
I
did?
did. I grew up in New
Okay,
Jersey, but
got it.
anyway, getting hands-on, doing real-world projects there is no better learning mechanism, in my opinion, to emphasize that. The program that I went through for college, very hands-on. And those graduates, like myself, would often go out into automotive, manufacturers. In the last many years, SpaceX and Tesla were hiring a lot of graduates. And I spoke to some of the recruiting and hiring people in those firms, and they said, people that are coming out of your vehicle program are ready to go on day one. And people that come out of a mechanical engineering program take about a year or two before they're at all useful. And because those hands-on skills are so transferable to manufacturing companies, or really any kind of company. I mean, because one of the big things that Eagle Manufacturing teaches, and I'll give a huge shout out to Chris Townsend, who's the main director there, is they're teaching employability skills, not just the manufacturing skills. So they, grit and showing up on time and problem solving and, all those kinds of things, customer service skills are so critical, and something that you can't learn in just a classroom setting.
Exactly right. Yeah, those student-run businesses is such a great opportunity in so many ways to get hands-on, to understand what it's like to run a business, to understand the challenges that come along with running a business, because not every part is right the first time, and not every customer is happy the first time, and not every design works the first time, and then you're kind of learning by doing. So much of what you just said it just echoes with me and resonates with me because my thinking is so similar. I could not stand sitting in a lecture hall. Never could. I didn't have the guts to pick up and go somewhere else. I finished my education pathway and then get on with, life got so much easier when I didn't have to just sit and listen to people, lecture me all the time, and probably need a little bit of that every once in a while. But I'm a hands-on learner too. And I think most people are. And when we can engage directly with our learning, that is when it sticks. You talk about,
Sure.
and I've referenced on this podcast before, a good friend of mine that runs the internal automation program for a really big OEM. Everybody would recognize the name. I won't mention it, but it's a $5-10 billion company, $5 billion in manufacturing and another $5 billion in retail, as a matter of fact. And he told me that when he hires 4-year degreed engineers, and no offense, I'm actually married to one, but when he hires them, he said it's 2 years before they're any good to us. And he said, they've got all of the theory, they've got all of they know calculus, they know physics, they can, solve equations all day long, but, you got to get them out on the shop floor, understanding manufacturing technology. Which leads me to, I think, our next question, Paul, which is in this whole world of robotics where he lives and breathes. And to kind of set this up, I was part of a statewide robotics competition on the FANUC platform, as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago. And there was the team that took first place in that statewide robotics competition. Those students, 2 of them went to technical college and 1 of them went direct to workforce.
Yeah.
The team that took third place, all 3 of those students who learned on the same curriculum, the same hardware, the same process, all 3 of them went to engineering universities and actually said a year later that hands-on experience they had in high school was hugely beneficial to them because of the contextual nature of what they learned and how they could apply that to their theoretical classes once they got into their undergraduate collegiate work. We're seeing all these convergences in manufacturing, IT, OT convergence. We talk about that all the time, where people in information technology are getting dragged onto the shop floor, and people on the shop floor are now increasingly having to interact with IT technology and connected systems. So that's a convergence we're seeing. I guess it's a long way of asking the question, which is, are we starting to see that same convergence, or will we, between traditional tech ed courses and perhaps computer science or data analytics?
Yeah, I think they have to converge again because they're so interconnected these days. You can't. It would be the rare manufacturer that isn't integrating automation and IoT into their process, right? It's just, especially with how difficult it is to find manufacturing workers and the immense shortage in the industry. Robotics and other IoT, machine monitoring and other things that are enablers of more throughput and efficiency they're just paramount projects, right? I know the US has been a little slow in adopting robotics, compared to some of the other countries that have a much higher density of them in their manufacturers, but it's really accelerating now, and understanding how to program those, to integrate them into manufacturing processes, to analyze the data, to do improvement projects, to make it even better and faster is just, it has to come together. And so I think having students have real hands-on experience with those, and that could, the various robotics competitions are just like we did with building our cars. They're building little robot cars. Such an incredible learning opportunity for real hands-on project-based learning, teamwork skills, along with the technical skills of programming those devices and understanding how they all work. It's just, it's so essential for sure.
And to draw that analogy one step further, I often comment on when I listen to people who are working in the realm of automation integration. So integrating robots with programmable logic controllers, with drives, with these smart sensors and devices, and then pulling all that data to data collectors and up to the cloud and so on, that whole continuum. There's people that have that's a real job for a lot of people, and we could certainly use more of those people. And when you listen to those people talk about the projects that they're working on, it's reminiscent for me about how kids when I was growing up in the 1980s would talk about working on their cars. Like, oh man, that's so sick. Look at what you did, whatever. And they're talking about the same attributes and the same applications in manufacturing in terms of the creativity and the problem solving and the things that they're learning being hands-on. It's really, really important and really exciting. And so for those careers, I mean, for anybody that's wondering a potential career choice, if you're a hands-on learner, if you like working with technology, if you're intrigued by data like I am, just amazing opportunities and careers in the world of advanced manufacturing, especially on the integration side. And this is becoming more and more of an issue as artificial intelligence becomes more ubiquitous, not just around the globe, but
Absolutely.
particularly in the field of manufacturing. Talk to us a little bit about how you see AI influencing the world of manufacturing.
I mean, it's going to be ubiquitous as it is with any industry. Taking one of the most challenging aspects of IoT and all the data we've talked about is just having vast quantities of data, and unless you can parse that data quickly and efficiently and come up with actionable insights and things that are going to help improve processes or serve your customers better,
Right.
it's tough to deal with gigs and terabytes full of data. So AI is an incredible way to, and I do not claim to be an expert by any means, but to take, reams and reams of data and present it in ways that are very actionable to help people make better decisions, to help improve, processes, the way you serve customers. And so having students learn the basics of that at least, and I bet you there's lots of high school students that are better at it than professionals because they're using ChatGPT to make images and do other. I mean, I was first introduced by my teenage son. He's like, "Dad, look at this thing. We can just put in a prompt and it makes a picture for you." And I was like, "Holy cow, that's nuts." So yeah, I think it's sort of a natural progression for young people to be really intrigued by it, and it's already permeating so many different software products and other manufacturing processes that it's going to get bigger and bigger. There's no doubt about it. But fortunately, I think the manufacturing careers we're talking about are pretty safe for AI taking them over and like making the jobs obsolete, which in some industries that will have a much bigger impact. So, but learning how to leverage that to make those manufacturing jobs even more effective is a really important aspect.
You and I agree on both of those. Certainly, I think manufacturing is a really safe place to be, especially if you are an individual who's a lifelong learner, who's excited about how can we use some of these AI tools to improve process, to maybe automate process and so on. And what we find is as the careers get closer and closer to the automation, the salaries increase, the interest in the position increases, the jobs become more interesting, they become safer, they become more data driven. I mean, who among us wouldn't want a safer, higher paying, more interesting job? So I think if anything, technology, automation, and particularly artificial intelligence, it makes manufacturing an even more exciting and even more interesting place to be. Paul, you touched a little bit on schools implementing more of the AI and the data analytics into their curriculum. Do you have other examples or other ideas of what they need to be thinking about? If I'm a high school teacher, if I'm a tech ed instructor, computer science instructor, how do I need to be thinking about artificial intelligence and how I upskill and prepare my students for this new world of manufacturing and a new economy in general?
I mean, I guess the first part of it is learning about it themselves, right? You can't teach something you don't understand. So, diving into the tools, playing around with ChatGPT, looking at different ways it's being used, explore on YouTube and other, resources out there. There's lots of courses, of course, now coming out. I just got an ad for one on my phone yesterday morning to just learn how different use cases of AI can be utilized. And so I think that's first and foremost, and then just figuring out small ways to embed that into the curriculum and having it be something that helps augment the educational process. We certainly don't want kids turning in, projects that were, code and stuff that was written by ChatGPT, but they can certainly use it to make their projects more effective and more impactful.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that, that on one topic is really, really interesting advice for our industrial employers and also for our educators as they prepare that next generation. Kind of on that topic of preparing the next generation, Paul, what benefits have you seen as a business owner, both on the ERP side and on the machining side, of building great partnerships with your educational institutions?
We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? So I guess my biggest benefit is just knowing that we're having a positive impact, in these schools. We're making the lives of the students better. We're making the lives of the educators better. I mean, the one at Brown County High School, Chris said we, improved the efficiency of their workflow so much that they were able to almost double the number of students they served because it was just far less cumbersome versus the old way of doing it. So that feels great. More practically, we are actually probably the biggest customer of Eagle Manufacturing as well. They make all of our swag. They make us machined parts that we give away at trade shows and to customers. So they are a fantastic supplier for us. So that's been a very positive relationship for sure. And then I guess those are really the big ones, just the knowing we're doing the right thing and helping to contribute back. And then hopefully someday we will have, and we've been there about 2.5 or 3 years, we'll have a graduate from that program, go on to industry and then call us up and say, hey, we could use ProShop here at our business.
Absolutely.
That would be a wonderful first full circle moment. That's not why we're doing it, but that would be pretty cool if that ever did happen.
Well, and if they were part of the experience of seeing productivity and the number of students they can serve with that program double as a result of using your solution, why wouldn't they bring that into their manufacturing environment when they get there? And in the meantime, the knowledge that you're doing the right thing, that you're a great customer and a great advisor to a program like that, obviously that's incredibly fulfilling in and of itself. And the knowledge that you're inspiring that next generation toward careers in advanced manufacturing, which I think is just an incredibly important part of what you do. So as we're reaching that 14, 15, 16-year-old student, or maybe even younger through Eagle Manufacturing that you touched on, that they know that this is a career they could have. And maybe not every one of them goes into advanced manufacturing, but they know it's a career path and it's going to be a pathway that is inspiring to some of them, if not many. And we'll see the ranks of manufacturing talent here in the United States grow, because I think that's absolutely imperative to our national defense, to our national security, to the integrity of our supply chain. I mean, all of these aspects of what we enjoy here in the United States are so reliant on that future generation of manufacturing talent. So credit to you of that work you're doing. And then speaking of that 14, 15, 16-year-old individual that's in high school, we're going to take you all the way back to, I'm guessing, your New Jersey days when you're 15 years old. Your whole life is ahead of you, Paul. And you're just thinking about your future, what your future could be, and a really, really exciting time for a young person, but also a time of a lot of questions, I'm sure, for many of them, certainly for me when I was that age. So if you had one piece of advice that you could give to that 15-year-old Paul Van Metre, what would it be?
I mean, I fortunately was always one that just saw what I liked and went for it. I didn't second guess. I just, and my parents were wonderful in supporting me in doing that. But I guess I would say the importance of building really good relationships and the people side of projects and manufacturing and education. And, that was, I think, one of the best parts of the student program that we did in college. Was it was such an immersive experience as a team that getting really good at teamwork and team building skills and interpersonal communication is such a fundamental part of being successful in life. And not that I was ever terrible at it, but just really leaning in and learning about being really good at that can be really beneficial to someone's entire life and career.
No doubt about it. Knowing the value of being a great teammate and what you can accomplish with a team of people. And it's always so much more when you've got a group of people working in the same direction with different ideas and different abilities and different skills. And it's amazing how much further ahead you can get when you foster that spirit of teamwork, and then the power of relationships. And who among us hasn't benefited over our lives from the relationships that we've had with other people who have mentored us, who have helped us, who we've been able to help, to some of your earlier points, Paul. So really appreciate both of those suggestions, both on the teamwork side, on the relationship side. Certainly, as you put it, going after a goal when you had it, going after something that was important to you, and having the support of your family and the support of your parents. I think that's all really, really good advice for that 15-year-old Paul Van Metre and for any 15-year-old growing up here in the United States or around the globe. So glad that you're able to join us, Paul, today. Fascinating conversation around data, around the future of education, around advanced manufacturing. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And if I could just speak, one last thing to the manufacturers out there, it is, I guess to everyone, manufacturing, and I'm particularly passionate about machining, it is absolutely foundational to the entire economy, the world economy. Like every single physical thing in our existence starts with machining one way or another in manufacturing. Most people don't get that. They don't understand how deeply embedded those processes and those careers and those companies are, but they're absolutely the bedrock of the economy. And it's so important that they thrive, so important that we invest in them. So I would encourage anyone listening to just learn more about it, teach your kids, invest, if you're a company, invest in education and help build this up for our economy and our country.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Advanced manufacturing, particularly machining, the bedrock of our country. Many people take it for granted, but it is absolutely imperative to literally everything that we use, everything that we do in our entire way of life here in the U.S. and again, all over the planet. So appreciate those insights as well in all your efforts on behalf of advanced manufacturers, on behalf of machining companies, and most important, on behalf of that next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you like this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.